Washington football team dominated the Dallas Cowboys. That was an ass whipping. One of the most beautiful things you could ever see is watching your team, who is well coached, totally prepared, firing all cylinders, just beat the crap out of your rival. It's a glorious feeling. I can't tell you how happy I am that football has survived the pandemic and that we're still getting to watch. I mean, I'm just so happy about it. I couldn't tell you. Can't even tell you, man. Anyway, hope you slept well. Hope you had a nice weekend. The numbers are going up, it seems. So, wear your mask. Don't be foolish. Just wear the daggone thing and do your part. We'll be through this before you know it. 2020 is going to be a year we all remember and look back on like, damn, can't believe we lived through that. So last week I talked a lot about kind of the foundation of things, the foundation of, the foundation of being, like what it is to be alive. What are the things that we interact with as alive human beings on the planet Earth? Where the things that we think and the things that we think we know come from, why those things have such an impact on our perceptions of reality. What happens when you begin to learn about those perceptions from the perspective of mindfulness, what you can begin to see. So I talked about the three parts of the human experience. There's the intellectual part or the mind part. There's the moment part or the wisdom part or the body part, which is, so the mind is the identity part, the idea part that takes place in the past and the future. The body part, which is the actualization of the identity, which takes place in the present moment. Those distinct experiential realities are made kind of aware when you begin to study the practice of mindfulness. You begin to see that you're the awareness of the parts. You're not the parts. We also talked a little bit about the spiritual aspect of the human experience, and we described that as simply as the unknown, and that also has to be accounted for. You cannot go through life assuming that you know everything or can get to a place where you know everything. There's always going to be something outside of your spectrum of awareness, and you have to account for that. So we talked about those things last week, and I put up a lot of kind of pictures that I hope will help people just kind of understand. It's a tricky thing to get because when you're not practiced in mindfulness, you don't understand experientially what it means to be kind of inside a particular mindset. There isn't space. So say you're inside of an addictive moment. An addictive moment for me is food. So when it comes to food, I kind of resort back to like an animal kind of thing. I mean, a lot of times I just consume, like I'm just consuming. And I'm using my right hand. I'm just and I remember a basic training experience where Drill Sergeant Young, who was just a man, he was a totally competent drill sergeant, but damn, he was a prick. And we got in trouble in the first cycle or whatever. And he said, "All right, we're going to go to chow. Each of you only have like 15 seconds to eat your food," or something like that, or 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes for lunch. And I remember just being, fuck you, I'm going to be the first one out. So I went and I grabbed my sandwich, and I didn't eat the bread because I was doing the Atkins diet. So I didn't eat the bread. I grabbed the meat, shoved the meat in my mouth, swallowed it down, and was out of the DFAC before the drill sergeant had even sat down. It's like a big fuck you to the drill sergeant. Yeah, fuck you, drill sergeant. I can eat faster than you. Um, but that mindset of just being like food is just go on to the next thing. Like that's kind of what happens for me. I get into the experience of eating, and it really feels like I become a different person. Like I'm a different. It's not so much I'm a different person as it's as though time is different, experience is different, and I've also started to notice that when I eat, um, certain things trigger a momentum into the eating. So if I'm eating and I imagine something that's kind of down or not good or anxiety provoking, I almost start to speed up my eating. So it's almost like this thing happens in my awareness, my thoughts, a projection about the past or a projection about the future. Instead of feeling it, I go into food to not feel it, and I just start eating, right? Now, what I've done recently is I've shifted from this old style, just kind of being into this space. I've shifted from this old style to a new style, which is where I eat with my left hand. So I've shifted eating from my right hand to my left hand. And I have to remind myself every time to do it. Like I forget all the time. I'm just into eating. I'm just, and then okay. Then I use my left hand. And then with my left hand, it's all different. It's totally different. With my left hand, I'm like, I have to kind of like scoop the food out. I'm like, because it's just not practiced. And all of a sudden, what's happening when I use my left hand, time is totally different. It takes me forever to finish a meal now. And I'll notice my wife will finish before me, my children will finish before me, and I'll just be kind of like, it takes me concentration on the moment to eat, and I'm way slow, and I'm just eating, right? So then it's just a totally different experience. I'm 40 years old, okay? 40, all right? You know how long I've been aware of this and doing this? 2 months, a month. So like in the context of the body, right? In context of addiction and the context of the present moment, like you say, oh, get to the moment, get to the body. It's where you can find the moment, be in the moment, blah blah. It's not just that either. Like you can, if you're in your body, embodied, blah 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 blah, you can become lost just like anything else, right? So that's the mind. That's how the body can kind of take over. Now the mind can take over in a different kind of way. So the body, when the body takes over, the body takes over in the moment. All right. So it's happening right now. When the mind takes over, the mind takes over in the past and the future. And so when the mind takes over, it's a different kind of thing in that it has a narrative to it. Now, when the body's taking over, the narrative supports the body and the body kind of maintains itself. But when the mind takes over, the mind becomes the narrative takes over and the body begins to support the narrative and they become kind of intermeshed. I mean, everything's intermeshed, but they really become intermeshed. And so when the mind takes over in a triggered environment, it feels like the whole world's against you. Like it feels like everything becomes the enemy. And it's, I mean, it's a weird thing. I remember the last time this really happened for me, I think it was 2018 maybe. I'm not sure what it was, but there was a sleep element to it. There was a stress element to it. And then something with my wife and children. I remember it just triggered me, and I was in this darker place. And I've had this place before. It's like this. It's like where everything gets kind of lasered in. Everything becomes kind of blinders. My this actually helps if you want to understand what the sound of my kind of triggered moment feels like. You put your hands like this, and when you put your hands like this, you'll notice that sound, if you were to start to tell a story right now, sound becomes different. So this happens to me. I get like these sound blockers and these sight blockers come on, everything becomes lasered in. Everything becomes kind of an angry, it's an off. Everything feels very off. Sound feels off. I get what I call slam sounds. It's where sounds kind of reverberate like an extra amount inside my head. Um, it becomes very, very kind of fractured. There's this weird element to the experience. So anyway, the trigger thing happens, and I remember the last time it happened, I remember my wife and my daughters were like, and I said to him, I was like, you just need to give me some space. Leave me alone. Don't talk to me right now. You're just going to have to be aware of this. Just don't say anything right now. And they were all just kind of like, because my body language was different, my voice was different, my entire energy was totally different. And so everything had become my enemy. And I remember a couple things about that space is one, I kind of liked it. Like I liked the feeling. It was the feeling of fuck everything, fuck everyone. I'm doing whatever the fuck I want. Fuck you. and I just remember like I almost wanted my kids to say something. I almost wanted my wife to say something because I wanted to snap. I wanted to do it. and it was I mean that was a while ago. It's been a long time since something like that's happened. But it's still a matter of training, because what happens is you can go from this as intensity 10, right? So there's intensity 10, you're full on triggered, you're full on like about to lose it, to start working with intensities 2s and 3s. So intensities 2s and 3s are really good training because it's subtle. Intensities 2s and 3s are kind of what I'm aware of now when I'm eating. It's also what I'm aware of when I'm interacting with different social media. So a triggered in social media is I'll see something that doesn't make any sense. I will immediately look at the likes, and then I'll start going into the comments. And so it's a subtle kind of thing. It's not so overt, right? Sound doesn't change, my body language doesn't change, all those things don't happen, but I still get kind of pulled in. And so what's happening now is I'll kind of feel the pull and I'll pull back. So I'll feel the pull. I won't look at the comments. I won't read all the language. I won't. I won't take in what they want me to look at. So I'll recognize the pull. I'll recognize that there's a pull going on, and I'll shift it. And so that's 2s and 3s. When it gets down to 0s, okay, when you get down into the art of peace, so the actual engagement with it, it's emptiness. It's emptiness. Now, it's hard to understand what I mean by emptiness without the training. So I'm gonna try to get you to emptiness today when we do the 4 bells. But what emptiness is emptiness is a sense of blending. There isn't an attachment to it. There's no analysis. There's no this is the way it should be. There's simply this is the way it is. And once you've gotten to the art of peace, then there's simply compassion. There's compassion, there's gratitude, there's openness, there's open-heartedness. And so even in the darkest of descriptions, there's still not any kind of narrative. And the narrative is problematic because the narrative can take on an element of truth. And the problem when a narrative takes on an element of truth is, to the unaware person, that truth can become like the truth can take them over. And for a PTSD sufferer, the truth, the narrative of truth around PTSD can become someone's identity. And that can be reinforced over time. And remember, if we do anything on a regular basis, our brains actually wire it into our lives. So it's not this kind of thing that kind of happens on the side. It's a thing that we become. So the emptiness is the perfect the emptiness is the perfect way to move into anything without succumbing to whatever the messaging, narrative, emotional kind of thing is, and still be very, very competent. That's why you want emptiness. We talked about emptiness in the very beginning. If you don't understand emptiness, you'll never understand the art of peace. That was, I think, stanza. It's an early one. Yep. 5. If you have not linked yourself to true emptiness, you will never understand the art of peace. So you go into a social media post empty, then not only can you interact with the entirety of the social media post, you can also leave the post with goodwill intact. You can even leave goodwill with the person. There's total break. There's no connection. There's total break, and there's no lag. Nothing holds on. You're not thinking later like, God, that's some bullshit. That's, you know what I should do? I should go back and talk about that. I should leave a comment. There's none of that. There's just simply it's gone, and then you're off to the next thing. And so that's ultimately where you want to go with your larger triggers. Now, if you're getting into a trigger 10, a trigger 10 trigger is you're not on top of yourself. You're not on top of your life. You're not training. You're not drinking enough water. You're not sleeping. If you're triggered 10, that means that you've fallen off the path and you need to get back on. And this is where you need to reach out to your team and get your support system spun up, because if you're triggered 10, you're way off the path. Triggered 10 is what happens when your systems are operating at a very low level. It's when if you're at triggered 10, that means you're getting triggered all day, all the time. It's lots going on. So you don't want to get to triggered 10. So anyway, I've talked enough about this. Let's get into the training. What we're going to look for inside the training today, inside of each bell, is after I'm going to try to pause a little bit more, try to give a little bit more empty time. And after each time, when I go into an empty time, I really want you to kind of notice what it's like to be inside the moment empty, which is, it's just a kind of like, oh, I'm aware that there's not anything going on. I'm aware of emptiness. So in the art of peace, we call this radiant awareness. So radiant awareness means that the awareness is active. It's actively out, it's actively in, it's actively around. But it's not filling out. It's not filling out. It's not filling in. It's not filling around. It's just aware of all of it. That's radiant awareness. That's what you want. Another way to call it is emptiness. So I'll leave some holes in the training so you can kind of perceive that a little bit more today. So what are your cues to comfort? Follow your cues to comfort. What gives you a sense of ease and relaxation on the inside and on the outside? Maybe you like a different spot to be in. Whatever the case may be, get yourself squared away, and here comes bell 1. So light and shadow. Look around. Notice little aspects of light and shadow that you didn't notice before. There's always something. Once you've established light and shadow awareness, go ahead and shut your eyes down by either looking down or closing them all together. Sound. What do you hear? Where do you hear? What do you hear? Touch. What's temperature like around you? How does it feel on your skin? Can you feel some areas of your skin have a different temperature than, say, areas of your skin that are covered by clothing? Smell and taste. Smell and taste. Take some time to study the smell around you and notice the taste in your mouth. Going to second bell. Notice your ground, what's beneath you. What parts of your body are touching what's beneath you. Notice the pelvis, the base of the spine. What's going on at the pelvis? Move up to the core. Notice the belly button area, lower back area, sides area. Heart space, shoulder blades. Move your shoulder blades around a little bit. Not a lot, but just enough to feel it. Maybe you can feel the way the fabric of your clothing moves against your skin. Maybe you'll notice a little bit of the movement of your collarbones and your shoulder blades and your collarbones move together. If you leaned back a little bit, what would it feel like on the front of your body if you leaned back, if you tilted to the right or the left, if you just kind of tilted, tilt from the bottom like a teeter-totter, finding the spot where your spine kind of is perfectly balanced, kind of on itself. So there's this kind of easy pull in all directions that kind of normalize the spine. And then from there, go into the throat space and just notice the different ways that the throat space shows up. So you've got a swallow, you can feel the throat space like that. Air moving in your throat will show up inside your throat. You can study that. And then there's humming. So if you did a hum like, it's really interesting to notice the way the throat vibrates and how far down it vibrates. So if you hum for the next 10 seconds, try to study where the hum feels the most intense and where it disappears in your body. You'll be able to kind of notice that inside. So when you're ready, let's hum for 10 seconds. Top of the head. Top of the head, top of the spine. Alert and relaxed. Get to the top of the head and then slowly start to release any leftover muscle tension from the forehead down. So soften the forehead, soften the eyebrows, soften the muscles behind the eyes, the nose, the cheeks, the jaw, the chin, all the way down. And rest for a moment in your perfect seated posture. Look for any holding that might be in the body that kind of turned on unnecessarily. Take your baseline breath. Max it out. And let it go. Now, one of the things about being triggered is that everything kind of collapses and everything kind of comes into a space of kind of singularity. And so what I want to do is I want to practice that a little bit using breath holds. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice holding at the top and holding at the bottom. And what will happen is as you hold longer on each the top and the bottom, you'll start to feel more and more intensity around the holds and more focus on the holds themselves. So the getting to the end of the hold to get to the other side of the breath will become a more of your singular focus. And so I just want you to notice how that starts to take place and just kind of feel it. And because what you want to do is you use this to kind of recognize when it could happen in the real world. So here in training, we get a kind of a glimpse of how everything can kind of collapse into focus, and you start to notice that that can happen. And then out in the real world, when you go back into your day, you notice that, oh, here it's happening now, and you can do something about it. So when you're ready, go ahead, take a breath in, take a breath out, take a breath in, take a breath all the way out, and hold at the bottom. Breathe in, hold at the top, breathe out, hold at the bottom, breathe in, hold, out, hold, in, out, in, out, back to normal, and sit. What are you grateful for? Just in your own head, say to yourself, what am I grateful for? What shows up? What shows up right away? If ambiguity shows up, pick something really simple and really local. like clean underwear. Are you aware of any suffering that you would be willing to share your goodwill with? So can you imagine any suffering going on right now? And in your mind, is there goodwill that you can share with that person, or those elements of suffering? Now let's just end for gratitude for the practice, gratitude for O Sensei, gratitude for the art of peace, gratitude for mindfulness, gratitude for technology. Just end on gratitude and take 2 breaths, and on your second exhale, come back to the practice. So I am aware of my internal environment. It's mostly empty, although I've got a car commercial. The song for a car commercial, I think it's Hyundai is in the back left of my awareness. Like I feel this song. I feel the song of the car commercial kind of repeating in the back of my awareness. It's way back. It's very far away. It's very faint, but I still feel it. So it's like I've got 90% emptiness and then this little song back here. Anyway. Huh. Good job. That was fun. That was a good training. Anyway, I'm always available for questions. And like I mentioned last week, this is training. I'm not here to be your buddy. I'm here to be your teacher. I'm here to motivate you to see that most of what you've got going on in your head and in your patterns can be improved. And if you improve those patterns and you develop new ones and you start to understand these stanzas and you get going with the training, your life will shift. And it doesn't make it better. It just means it'll shift and you'll start to see things in a different way. And for that, I'm always available. I'm always here for you on the practice of mindfulness and how to just be the best version of yourself. So please, please know that you can ask me about anything. And don't worry if like, oh, am I allowed to ask you this? Da, da, da. I just won't answer. I just won't interact with you if it's like, let's be buddies, let's talk gossip, or let's be friends, or look at this or look at that. I just won't interact. It's not no hard feelings or whatever. It's just boundaries. But man, when it comes to mindfulness and it comes to being the best version of yourself, I'm all yours. So please, if you have any questions about emptiness, radiant emptiness, what does it mean when I say some of these things you're not quite sure, just ask. I'll get it. I'll get it, whether it's in the comments or messages or whatever. I'll get it and I'll help you out. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's stanza is, did I even read the stanza today? Yeah, so stanza 76. In extreme situations, the entire universe becomes our foe. At such critical times, unity of mind and technique is essential. Do not let your heart waver. Tomorrow, the stanza is, at the instant a warrior confronts a foe, all things come into focus. So we'll tackle that tomorrow. Later, Armor Down.